We are here with our friend. Your name is?
Matthew.
Matthew. Matthew is, you came from United States, yeah? Your question was about the spirit. Are we separate from God, or are we connected to God? What is our connection? That was your initial question, yeah?
Essentially, yeah.
And we have agreed in the beginning of the argument, yeah, that if the truth was whatever it is, we have to embrace it and to follow it. That was the agreement, yeah. And I told you earlier, if I prove to you that with your own reasoning that Islam is the right way and the true way to have faith in God and to follow God, you said you're going to be embracing it, correct? Yeah. All right. Now let's start with the beginning. I asked you about the existence of God. You told me it's hard to put it into words. Yeah, that's what you mentioned. Now, let me describe to you. Now, according to your standard, now your narratives about the existence of God, you're kind of, you say do you believe in higher power? There is something there. Do you believe in this? You believe there is higher power? You believe something that exists there?
I certainly believe in the possibility of it.
Okay. We will be using what we call it the nullification arguments, which means we'll bring all these possibilities and then we will see, and if these possibilities they make sense, we'll accept it. If they don't make sense, we'll nullify them. Yeah? We exist here. Do you accept that we exist? Do you accept the universe exists?
Yeah.
Some people they come there and I don't know. Yeah? Some are even skeptic about the existence of themselves. Yeah? Let's say since we exist and the universe exists, now the next question is, how did we came into existence? How this universe came into existence? Did this universe came out of nothing? Nothing, and then it just came into out of nothing? Or this universe was there always, infinitely, that was there always? Or this universe, yeah, created itself by itself, yeah? So these are you could say these are from what I remember, these are the possibilities. Do you have any other possibility that you think about the existence of this universe? Either came out of nothing, or created itself by itself, yeah, or it was there always, or it was created by a creator. These four arguments. Do you have any other possibility?
Well, there's always the newer theory that it's all a simulation, but I feel like that's equally hard to prove.
Yes, my point is these are the possibilities. Do you have any other possibilities in your mind?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, let's start by one. The universe came out of nothing. Can nothing produce anything? When I'm talking about nothing, the absence of everything, the absence of material, the absence of energy, absence of everything. Can it produce anything?
Can nothing produce something, essentially?
Yeah.
Not that I know.
Definitely not. I mean, nothing, as I mentioned to you, when we describe the nothing, we're talking about the absence of everything. There is nothing there. No energy, no material, nothing. So that's why it's impossible, nothing to produce anything. So that's nullified. This is the first argument. That the universe created itself by itself. Meaning that the universe, it has to pre-exist before existence to create itself, just like you giving birth to yourself. Does that make sense to you? Are you thinking that you have a deep thinking about it? Do you know what means that to pre-exist before existence?
Yes. Well, how can one know something that seems so impossible?
I mean, it doesn't need to have that deep, Before existence to pre-exist. When the starting point of your existence to pre-exist, that's impossible, basically. One second, we have a discussion here. If you can move to the other side, yeah.
I have a thought on that, but I can't quite articulate it.
There is no way to articulate it. There is no way to think. Basically, it means you yourself, you have to be there before your existence, and then to decide to exist. Do you see the problem? Can you see the problem or you can't see the problem?
Well, decide to exist. No one decides to exist.
Yeah, that's my point. That's why no one decides to exist. That's my main thing. Because there is no one decide to exist.
Except after you do already exist.
السلام ورحمة الله. لا جزاك الله خير. الله يرضى عليك. جزاك الله خير. الله يرضى عليك. جزاك الله خير. كرمك الله. الله يحفظك رب.
I mean, no one decides to exist after you do already exist.
Yeah, that's
obviously you decide to exist in this moment after you've existed for so many moments before.
Yeah, basically that's impossible. That shows it's impossible to pre-exist for existence.
And so you would have to have always existed.
So then the last argument to be always existence, meaning infinity. Does infinity exist in the real world?
I would argue yes.
Based on what?
Well, the mathematical nature of the universe.
I'm a mathematician.
And energy.
Yeah, it's finite. It's finite.
I don't know if I would agree with that. Mostly due to the sort of fractal nature that the universe has. Not exactly. It's infinity within a finite space.
They describe it, but it's finite. Since there is boundaries for this universe, that's finite.
Boundaries, but it goes infinitely deep.
No, it's finite. The universe is finite.
Have you ever heard of something called the Mandelbrot set?
I'm a mathematician. By the way, I am a mathematician. Yeah, we are using.
You have that.
Yeah. I'm a mathematician.
That's something that really
listen. I am a mathematician, and I know infinity is a hypothesis. It's an assumption describing something cannot be achieved. For example, with our own mind, which means, for example, infinity plus one is still infinity. Infinity minus one is still infinity. Infinity plus one minus one is infinity. Meaning, it is a figure. It is something that it has no existence in real numbers. So, since this universe is real, and since the particles and the atoms and everything are real, that means it is finite. And this universe, this universe, it's.
I feel like that's a big assumption.
No, because this is how it is. By the way, for example, when you are talking about materials, you're talking about existence materials. You're talking about the beginning of the universe. So it has a beginning. So and as well, all cosmologists as well believe the universe has a beginning. So and that they try to describe the beginning by Big Bang or whatever, you name it. Yeah. Even though I'm not necessarily fond of Big Bang theory or whatever. But my point is they agree that there is a starting point. So since there is a starting point, that means it's not infinity, basically. It's finite. Anything that has a starting point is finite. Simple as that.
Anything that has a starting point is
finite. Yeah.
So
I'm talking about real life. Real.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that the universe will end someday?
Yeah, it will end somewhere. It will. Eventually, it will end at a certain point.
How do you think that's going to happen?
Now, how do you think that's going to happen? That's the answer, which the Quran has answered this. But before we get to that point, let's establish this. Yeah. So since infinity, it is an assumption, a hypothesis describing something which is describing a huge number, but still, when we're talking about the universe, real life things, or you could say that means it's a finite. So that's why that goes as well. That when we're talking about the beginning of the universe, that means basically it is finite. So that's why it's impossible to say the universe existed, was there always, and will be there always. Yeah. So then we come to the last conclusion, which is the universe was created by a creator, which is called basically this creator. The narratives that we have in this universe is not necessarily applies to this creator. Yeah? The narratives that applies to us here is not necessarily applies to this creator, which means again, and that is the God. When God. And that's the definition of, but that's when we talk about God. But let's talk about the higher power before we come to the point of God, yeah? So this higher power created this universe, and this higher power has certain characteristics, yeah? All-knowing, knowledgeable to do things. This universe, the way that it is, the way that it's structured, it has to come out of knowledge. It doesn't come out of ignorance, yeah? Secondly, all-powerful, so powerful to create this this humongous universe, and as well has independent will, has a will to decide to do something, to decide not to do something. And that's, if we accept this, then this is what we're talking about God. We're talking about the divine, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Do you agree?
Could you restate that?
So, the creator of this universe, that's the last option which we have. Then if there is a creator, this higher power has certain characteristics. Should be all powerful to create this universe, should have the power, a possessor of all power, basically, to create this universe. Secondly, has to be all-knowing, so intelligent, all-knowing, knowing everything, yeah, to do, for example, to create this universe the way that it is. Thirdly, should have independent will, yeah, meaning that will decide to do something without, for example, influence of any other, basically. Will decide to do something, will decide not to do certain thing. And that is the definition of God. All powerful, all knowing, has independent will. Do you agree? Matthew. Do you agree?
Maybe. And I say maybe because I only think that
because you don't have many other choices. I understand. By the way, that is here. Let me tell you something. Yeah, and actually, instead of being skeptical about, for example, these things, is actually when you put all of these things, the puzzle. Yeah, the puzzle. There's each piece has its own particular place. When you put it in the particular place, then everything makes sense. Yeah. Now you are in a situation because you are skeptical about different things. It's just like a puzzle which is all over the place. But when you put things in place, then everything will make sense to you. And that's why in Islam we don't believe. Yeah. In Islam we don't believe in blind faith. We believe as well to understand things. We will use our own reasoning. We will use our own.
Both sides.
Yeah.
You're supposed to analyze the language to use it.
Yeah, we will use our own analogy, we'll use our own reasoning to understand about the purpose of our creation. Now let's establish this. Let's me and you accept there is a divine. And this all-powerful, all-knowing has independent will. Yeah? Since we don't have much other choices. Yeah? The question is, why this divine, why this creator created us? For what purpose? Why? Why are we here? Remember, bear in mind that this creator is all-powerful, all-knowing, meaning he knows what he has created. When I say he doesn't mean he has an agenda, I'm talking about he as, just to describe him. So my point is, when he has created us, when he has created us, he has created for a purpose. So he knows why he has created us for. Now the question is to you, Matthew, what do you think the purpose of our creation?
Well, that relies on there being a divine.
What?
That purpose requires there to be a divine, and as you said, that of those four options, that seems to be the logical way to end. But my speculation, I don't know if that's the right word. My question is, why does there need to be a purpose? Why, just because you can't picture the universe coming from nothing, why can't that be true?
Yeah, because again, going to the assumption.
Absence of proof is not proof of absence.
I agree with you to some extent, but here we have already proved that there is no proof for nothing produce anything. Basically, simple as that. So that's why we cannot use that argument, basically.
Well, yeah, the proof of absence. Absence is proof is not the proof of absence. Just because something hasn't been proved.
I agree. That shows, that tells us with our own reasoning, yeah, that nothing produces anything, basically. It doesn't produce anything. It's nothingness. We know what it means, nothingness. No energy, which actually, just the hypothesis itself is impossible to imagine. You understand? You may find something, absence of material, but you cannot impose absence of power and absence of energy.
Why?
It doesn't exist in the real life, in our life, in this universe. It doesn't exist. Think about a vacuum of material, but there is impossible to have vacuum of energy of the gravity, whatever the impact, whatever the things, even the gravity of particles around that vacuum, they still have kind of influence. So just only to think about it, it doesn't exist even.
May I add something?
Yeah.
So you are proposing that there's something.
Police, because of recording.
I'm not saying it is a possibility. I'm
Police
saying
tell
it's not.
him to leave the park.
Okay.
I'm not saying
Okay.
it isn't a possibility. I'm saying it's not necessarily impossible, because just because something
Not
hasn't
necessarily
been seen
impossible means
doesn't mean
there
it's
is
real.
chance
And that's
of
God
possibility.
itself right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Just because you can't see it
So
doesn't mean
it is
it's
not
there.
impossible means
I'm
it is
using the same
possible.
logic.
If you say that it is not impossible, that means there is certain possibility of happening that. Yeah, is it correct?
Sure.
Yeah. So let us take two possibilities. One is something. There is something called nothing. You say I'm using terms, but forgive me about using misterms, because let's see some nothing as something, and then you proposing that from this nothing something can come. Okay, your proposal. This is one option, and our position is that nothing can come from something, cannot come from nothing. This is our position. These are two possibilities. Now, if I go to through our possibility, then it logically leads to a being beyond this universe. He is capable of creating everything, and he is able. All qualities belong to him. Okay. Now, given your possibility, let us analyze that. Whether that means that there is a creator or something able entity beyond this universe. So your nothing is able to create something. By your definition, nothing. Now I am going to your possibilities. Your possibility. So your possibility is that your nothing is capable of creating nothing, something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll characterize your nothing.
Well, maybe it's,
my
it's
brother,
another
you
way
know.
around. Maybe nothing defines something and something defines nothing. And I
That's
just had a
again.
thought
You see here. That's a
while you were
problem.
saying that, because you take something real like mass or energy, you go down to the atomic level, subatomic level. You know, you got your neutrons, protons, electrons. Then you go even deeper and you get your quarks. And say you have the most individual finite building block of matter. Is there space between that and the next individual building block of matter? And if so, is that space between not nothing?
No.
No.
Do you know why? Because there is energy there.
Well, what is energy?
Yeah, the energy between these particles and the next particle, there's energy there. Even with that, there is energy. When I'm talking about nothing, I'm talking about the absence of everything, including energy. There's no energy at all.
You have quantum fields. Basically, your fundamental building blocks are no longer fundamental building blocks according to present understanding of physics. We know that quantum fields are pervading all the space. You know?
Quantum what?
Quantum fields.
Fields.
Quantum fields. From quantum fluctuation, particles pop out and goes to non-existence again into energy form, or the energy form of the field. So
Basically.
So this quantum field basically causes ability. Ability means energy. You know? So your nothing, whatever you are trying to mean by nothing, is basically physically something. Physically not nothing. It is quantum fields. So your nothing is not actually nothing in the sense we use nothing.
Yeah, that's why what you are using now here still is impossible, because even with that very small, narrow area, what you are saying, which they said absence of any particles at this point, still there is energy there because of the quantum fields. You understand? Because of this, basically it doesn't exist.
Can you define a quantum field?
Okay, quantum fields quantum fields, it is defined as some function or operator spread over space.
Space.
Space, like a sheet kind of thing. For example, I can give you the water surface. From there, you create a disturbance, and a disturbance travels as a wave from one part to another. So this disturbance you can imagine as a particle. Likewise, in quantum fields, if you have a
I can picture
perturbation,
that. In a way, it's like throwing a pebble into
Yes.
water.
And adding to this.
The nothing.
By the way, and
is there
adding to
not nothing beyond the way.
Listen.
Like in the distance, you throw a pebble here, it hasn't reached there yet. Is that over there nothing? or is it something? Because it's technically on that plane, but the energy hasn't reached that part of the plane yet.
My friend Matthew, again, what we are saying to you, now even between these particles, there is energy between them, meaning the gravity fields between them is still there. Do you understand? Which means even the smallest particle that we are talking about, it has some kind of gravity there. Yeah, the gravity of the earth, the gravity of the moon, the gravity of anything. There is always field of gravity, whatever it is. Even the gravities of the particles themselves. So there is nothing called absence of everything in this universe, vacuum of everything. Do you understand the point?
Add to that,
Did you get it? He got it. Do you understand the point? So that's why nothing produced nothing. That's what it is. It's impossible. You're talking about things which it doesn't exist. Now,
but that speculation I just had before, where that part of the plane where energy particles have not reached yet, is that nothing? Because there is no energy, there is no mass.
But there are other things. You're talking about one plane. You're talking about one thing. But there are hundreds and thousands and millions of particles that they have certain energy between themselves. The particles themselves, there is energy between them. You said when you go to the smallest thing in the neutrons, for example, or the smallest thing between them, even the photon. They said this is the smallest thing. Yeah, they said even there is, as well, between a photon and another photon, there is energy between them, which they cannot describe.
I think whatever you are terming as field or empty field, it is not actually empty. This is a field, and this field has energy. Sheikh is trying to convince you like that. Whatever you are saying that is empty space or something kind of that is not empty. It possesses energy. So that is the thing. You cannot have
energy.
It possesses. It has energy within it. For its own existence, it has to have some energy ability for existence. Even a space-time has its own energies. You know, for something to be in existence, it needs some ability to be in existence and to be held in existence. So that is how now modern definition of energy goes. Now, do
you accept now the argument that nothing produced nothing, and there should be something to produce something? Yeah.
If there is anything called nothing which is able to create something, then that nothing no longer remains nothing. It becomes capable.
Yeah, basically, the nothingness is a hypothesis which doesn't exist in the real world. That's how it is. So that's why, even with this, that this space, when this space started at the starting point, where it was it in a space, in certain space? This is the problem here. That's why they can't describe it. So that's why vacuum and absence of everything, it doesn't exist. So that's why, going back to the point, so there must be a creator for this universe. Then the next stop or the next point is what is the purpose of us of this creation?
Well, my next stop would be, is the creator infinite then?
Now what do you mean by infinite?
Beyond time and space.
Beyond time and space, yes, that's true, because God is not bounded with time and space. But we need to describe what's the meaning of time. Are you talking about God was before the time or whatever? Again, even the description of time, which is, for example, which is the period between an action and the next action, if this is considered to be time, that applies everywhere, basically. But God is beyond this, beyond our imagination, beyond the space, yeah, in terms of the space. But in terms of that, in the same time as well, that God, when God has created this universe, yeah, so that's why we need to understand it's not about the limitation about God when we're talking about it, but God chose to do certain things, created this universe, and actually not necessarily mixing with this universe, yeah, not necessarily. Which is the answer for the question about the spirit. Is our spirit or our souls are connected with God or not? That's why we say no. The spirit are the creation of God. God has created our souls and our spirits. Yeah, God has created. Not necessarily is basically a consequence of His creation rather than attached to Him. You understand the difference?
I don't, because I don't understand how something can interact with another thing and not be attached.
Now I will tell you what's the meaning of this. When God has mentioned in the Quran, people they will ask you about the soul or the spirit. They will say that the soul is one of from the commandments of my Lord, and I don't know much knowledge about it. Meaning, these are from the secrets of God. What is the soul? What's the difference with the soul? Is it energy, which is they cannot use as energy? Does it influence the energy? It could be, but where it came from, they don't know. What does it do when there is a life in a cell? When there is a spirit or the soul goes to the cell, it functions. And if it's not there, it doesn't function. Where this soul came from? Who influenced this soul? Let alone that this soul has a conscience. Us, when this soul, when this spirit attached to the body, then you will have a conscience to decide to do things, to decide not to do things, which is something beyond, again, our imagination. That's why we go back to say, actually, we came from something, which is the Creator. He has created us and created our souls, and at least this is the thing here, the purpose of our creation is to be grateful to God. Basically, that's what God wants from us. That's why we have our own conscience. That's why we are able to decide to do things. We are able to decide the right and the wrong. We are able to make mistakes. That's why we have this freedom of choice. Yeah, we have free choice. Because of this, God has created us for this purpose, to choose to worship Him, to choose to be grateful to Him. Otherwise, if it's about creating, creation that eat, drink, reproduce, animals do better job than us. Yeah. Animals do better job. They eat, they drink, they breed. They don't cause pollution. They don't cause atomic bombs. They don't do all of these things. They just only, they are there. They live and die, and that's it. But He has created us for a deeper meaning.
I don't know if that's completely true. I do have an anecdote off the top of my head in that supposedly billions of years ago, and there's proof of this in iron ore in Michigan, that there were a large group of prokaryotes, like single-celled organisms, colonies of them, and they were producing oxygen. And they ended up producing so much oxygen, they wiped out 99% of all life on Earth. So I'm using that as an example because life can pollute, it can destroy other life without even knowing. Something single-celled,
my point is,
can destroy other life without even realizing.
No, my point is, this is without the conscious. For example, these
it can destroy itself without even realizing.
Yeah, because they don't have this conscious to know what to do, what not to do. Unlike us, we choose to do this knowingly. What's the consequence of our thing? We do that. We know when you guys there, when you threw the atomic bomb to Nagasaki or Hiroshima, you knew the consequence was going to happen. Unlike an animal will do something, unlike them certain crows and things like this, which they could cause burning the jungle, etc., and killing other birds and other things. They don't have the consciousness. They don't have the conscience to think that this is going to happen. They just do things without that conscience to decide to cause, for example, a mass destruction. You understand? Us, we choose to do things. That means we are capable to destroy the earth with our conscience, knowingly that we are destroying it, unlike the others. So that's why, if there is someone, and if there are two people, they said the more responsibility you have, the more, you could say, the more impact that you have, the more responsibility will be upon you. Yeah? Which means if your influence was more on the others, that means your responsibility is way more than the others. So the same thing, when our impact on others is greater than others, the other animals, that's why our responsibility is greater than them. So what's our responsibility then? So God has mentioned this clearly in the Quran. When God has created Adam, God said to the angels that I'm making a successor on earth, Khalifa. Meaning he will be taking over, he's going to be responsible, he's going to be, he'll have responsibility towards the earth, and at the same time, the purpose of his creation is to worship God. Meaning to be grateful to God. That's the meaning of worship in Islam. And worship in Islam, not necessarily only the prayer that we do and the act of worship. Everything that we do on the day-to-day things, this is an act of worship. Us being good and kind to each other, us fulfilling the duties of our parents, us being good to our neighbors, being good in our community. that's how to be grateful to God, and this is an act of worship. So the meaning of worship in Islam is very broad meaning. It's not just only your relation with God; it's as well your relation with the creation of God, including the mankind, the all other creation of God. That's why we are not allowed, for example, to hunt just for the sake of hunting. We are allowed to hunt for food to eat. Otherwise, we shouldn't be getting these animals as a target just to hunt for the sake of hunting, or fishing for the sake of fishing, or killing creatures for the sake of doing that. No. So we are bounded and restricted with these things. And at the same time, God has made certain laws and legislations, which is as well, what it will do, it will manage our relation with our parents, manage our relation with our sisters, brothers, manage our relation with our neighbors, our community, etc. Now, according to this concept, to the people who have these things, now we know in the animal's life that that they will find, you'll find, for example, the son of, for example, or let's say, the child of this animal. Yeah. Later on, when they grow up, they may have intercourse with the mother. That's normal to produce rabbits, for example. A male rabbit, when they become the age of, for example, when they come at the age of mating, they will mate with their mothers. That's fine. It happens. But for us, is incest something which is lawful to be done, or not unlawful to be done? And who decides? Us? Are we voting about it? Shall we vote about, for example, our morality? Or we need to have kind of an objective, for example, you could say, an impact or an objective influencer on us to tell us what are the things which is lawful, what are the things which are not lawful. What do you think? If you choose to be us, basically, and us to vote, the Nazis, they voted for Hitler. They voted.
That's not super true. The Nazis only had about 40% of the parliament before they completely took over.
It doesn't matter. It happened.
40% voted for him. Sure,
Which means
They had power.
they had power, but they
by the way, it doesn't matter. So since there is 40%, that tells you something.
Yeah.
That tells you that it is okay for 40% of a population to dehumanize other people, to kill other people because they believe that they are lower class. And that's their morality. Which means 40% of Germany at that time, which is Germany plus as well other areas around it, which is Austria and other things, which we're talking about a huge number of area, which they agreed, 40% of them agreed on this. That's my point. So who decides what's good, what's bad? You, me, community. Who?
I don't have a good answer for that.
The good answer, there should be an objective morality. This objective is not attached to us. It has to be independent from us, telling us what is best for us. Because he is the one who created us and knows what is best for us.
And do you believe in evolution, like that humans came from apes or anything like that?
No, why? No. Do you know why?
Because if that's the case, as you said before, what we have to do what's good for us, right? As we are. And something that I've tried to put in perspective recently is that there's the belief that humans came from apes, or that we are apes, or related to apes.
Okay.
And I think that is very true, because if you take a look at human behavior, human diets, human social hierarchies, identical to apes.
Actually, no. We could be more identical to other animals. Lions as well, for example. They have the hierarchy. They have hierarchy.
They have a hierarchy, but they eat only meat.
But my point is still.
My point is we are anatomically, physically, socially identical to apes.
Pigs. They do the same thing.
We're identical in every way, not just in a few ways like pigs and lions. We're identical.
My point is, no, not necessarily. You need to understand, it doesn't mean that we have similarity with other animals. It doesn't mean that we have a common ancestor. No, not necessarily the case. You understand? So my point is, they try to use this. Actually, we don't have, firstly, we don't have a proof, for example, a scientific proof, except that these hypotheses, they try to use it, the similarity, etc. But again, not necessarily the case.
Similarity that were like 90. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Please go on.
So there are some similarity with birds. There are some, for example, what do you call it? There are some, what do you call it? Not the apes. What do you call it? There is which lives in Madagascar, which is similar. The one which is on the trees, what they are called.
So,
You know what they call?
I pictured it, but the word.
Huh?
Orangutans?
The ones which is in Madagascar.
Madagascar.
Yeah. They are similar to monkeys, but they're not monkeys.
Lemurs.
Huh?
Lemurs?
Yeah, lemurs, for example. But they're not monkeys. Again, they're different breed, different thing. So that's why, and they have similar diet, by the way. They eat meat, they eat different things. My point is, it doesn't mean that if there is similar things that we have a common ancestor. Now, but the answer comes from the Quran, which Quran affirms and affirms that God has created Adam, and God has created Adam from the soil. That's why the similarity comes that because we are created from this soil, which is the same soil that was created with other animals, the same thing. So that's why we have kind of commonality between us in terms of our, you could say, and our body nature. Yeah, and that's why that you need to understand that our Prophet, peace be upon him, or one of the scholars of Islam said that our body is attached to the earth, which is the animal side of us, and our soul is high, and it could be better than the angels if we worship God in the best way. So if we are attached to the earth and do what the other animals, will be worse than the animals. But if we are fulfilling the duties of God, yeah, and we alleviated our souls and our behavior above our, for example, our body nature, then we're going to be even compared with the angels, and we'll be better than angels. So that's why we are saying to you, Matthew, to accept Islam. That's what we are saying to you. And then you will find the guidance of Islam. Then you will find everything in place. You will find everything makes sense. You will find this is what's actually the truth. And this is the purpose of our life. Basically, it doesn't mean we have to stick in the mosque and do nothing. No, we work, we study. Our brother here, you study what, brother?
I have done a PhD in physics.
PhD in physics. I did as well. I did PhD in mathematics as well. I'm doing another PhD in finance, etc. So the point is, we study. We love science. We study. We do things. We have the golden age of the Muslims. You know that they have done a great actually deal to the science and to the medicine, to different things, which means that we open the gates for science. But we know that our knowledge is limited, and we know our knowledge is limited, and we know we are bounded and we're restricted as well with the guidance of God at the end of the day. That's why there are things which is beyond our understanding. That's what we are inviting you to Islam.